through the lot, now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
Madness, 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 madness. Big up everybody inside G, and we're back in the building. Match reaction for this evening, or by the time this is posted out, it will be last night. Liverpool 4, Chelsea 1 up at Anfield. Crazy game, man. Crazy game. Where should we even start? I mean, there's a couple talking points, a couple players that I wanted to take a look at. Guys, please make sure you're smashing the like button. Please make sure you share and subscribe to the channel. We are close to that 1K. Let's talk about the overall play. Liverpool absolutely dominant, man. Absolutely dominant. Bar maybe like a 10-minute spell that Chelsea had in the game. So for 80 minutes of a 90-minute football match, Liverpool were absolutely dominant. Didn't give Chelsea any time to breathe. You know, we'll take a look at the stats and stuff, you know, in a moment. But it was just one of those games, man. You know, evening game, you know, Liverpool fans were up for it. The players were really, really up for it. You know, we had a couple players out, well, not out, a couple players who started on the bench, you know, Trent, Robbo, you know, starting on the bench, no Mo Salah as well, you know, so it wasn't the strongest of Liverpool sides, but Liverpool were just absolutely dominant. And I think again, I'm not a Chelsea fan. I don't know in terms of tactically and stylistically, you know, how they are this season. Listening to a couple of the Chelsea fans and the kind of discourse that's kind of going around about Chelsea, you know, and, social media and stuff like that. One of the things that I get with Chelsea is that there's no continuity with them. Things are always constantly changing. And I think when you're constantly chopping and changing a team, especially a new team under a new manager, when you're constantly doing that, you don't really allow for there to be any kind of, as I mentioned, just continuity, just, you know, certain players playing with the same players, you know, all the time, understanding what does this player want to do. And I know people can talk, you know, people speak, you know, Liverpool's midfield is brand new and etc. But that's the only part of the team that was actually brand new, you know, so it's going to be far easier for a midfield to be able to kind of come into a team that the other 8 players on the team are kind of the same players who have been here, done that, you know, have got the t-shirt to kind of prove it, you know, in terms of the defense and the attack. But with Chelsea, where you've got so many different kind of players, and of course some of the players have played together in previous years and stuff like that, but it's relatively new. You've got a brand new manager, so he's got a new style of playing. It's a whole new regime, you know, going on there, and constantly from week to week to week to week, you're constantly trying to bring in this player and bring in that player. Obviously injuries, suspensions, and, you know, all of these kind of things will happen, you know, throughout a season, and they happen to all the teams. You know, no one's exempt from a player getting injured or suspended, but with Chelsea, it just always seems like it's a constant change. And I think even looking at the game, you know, trying to play Cole Palmer, you know, in that first half in that false 9 position, you know, I just didn't really think it was kind of working. I kind of understood why you would do it in terms of maybe he's playing false 9 because then you're going to have the runs from Raheem Sterling, but he was so anonymous, you know, in the game. You know, Bradley had to, if I'm being honest, as good as I thought Bradley was, he had a kind of an easy game. There wasn't really much threat coming down that side. You know, it wasn't that he had to battle with Trent and Chilwell when he was doing a man. He didn't really have to do any of that, if I'm being totally honest with you. You know, it was very, very minimal in the defensive side of things. Going forward, of course, Bradley was really, really good. And, you know, we'll speak about him in a second. But yeah, just as a whole, I just think Liverpool just totally dominated the game, to be honest with you. As we see here, Jurgen Klopp getting his 200th win in the Premier League for Liverpool, done it in 318 games. Really, really good record. Of course, look, the top 5 managers you probably say of the Premier League era: Pep Guardiola, Sir Alex Ferguson, Jose Mourinho, Arsene Wenger, and Jurgen Klopp, all on there. And you can see the only one that Klopp is behind is Pep Guardiola. Again, his adversary, the guy he's been battling for the last few seasons, Sir Alex Ferguson, there took him 322 games. You know, Jose Mourinho took him 326. I'm actually quite surprised by the Mourinho one, actually, to be honest with you. And Arsene Wenger. It's funny. Well, it's not funny because, you know, it is what it is. I would love to see how many titles these guys had won by the time they had reached their 200th win. I would actually really, really love to see. I'm going to obviously assume, so to speak, that Sir Alex Ferguson had a few, maybe. I don't know. I really don't know how many, what his 322nd game, what season that was in. But yeah, it'd be very interesting because obviously, if you look here, Klopp's the only one with one league title. You know, Wenger's got 3, Mourinho's got what, 3, I think. Fergie's got 13, Pep Guardiola's got about 100. You know, it's just one of those kind of things. So it'll be very interesting to see that. I might have to, you know, go away and do, you know, some research on that one. But again, very, very good. And it shows kind of, like I said, you know me, I'm some of these, and a stat like that, like a stat like this, it's just a stat. You know, I don't think it's. I'm not going to call it a pointless stat, so to speak, because it's just a stat. You know, that's of course just going to be thrown out there. But some stats I look at and I always think to myself, did we need to know that? Did I need to know? You know, I think what it does show is the consistency of Liverpool since Jurgen Klopp took over. Again, I would really love to see in the last few seasons how many wins, probably since, would I say, the 18-19 season, how many wins Liverpool have had, you know, since that season up until today. You know, to see what that kind of record must look like, you know, in terms of points and, you know, things like that, because there was that season, I think we got, what was it, 100 or that year, should I say, we had, was it 103 out of 105 points or something crazy, you know, like that. So it'll be very, very interesting, you know, to kind of give you a kind of mark as to, you know, where Liverpool have been at. But again, you know, points need to be turned into trophies ultimately. So it's very good that he's been able to get this 200th win and, you know, stuff like that. But he's been in 3 title races and only won 1. So, you know, like I say, these stats are the stats at the end of the day. You know, if it doesn't really amount to anything, I'm just like, it's just a stat that you know, it's been thrown around there. You know, it's of no real substance to me, to be honest with you. I would like to see, again, like I said, what that would look like up against the Peps, the Sir Alex Fergusons, the Joses, and the Arsene Wengers. They might all have only had 1 by that point, by the way. I have no idea. I have not checked the stats, haven't checked the numbers. So, you know, we'll get into that another time. But yeah, as I said, in terms of the game in itself, if you look at obviously the average position of Liverpool in the game, you can see, of course, we had Conor Bradley playing. Trent was on the bench. You can see how far you know, pushed up he was on that side. You know, Gomez inverting, so to speak, but I just kind of felt like he was just kind of slotted into that left centre back role. So yeah, if you want to call it inverting, then, you know, good to go. And then of course you've got McAllister there, you know, in that kind of DM position. Again, another really good performance from McAllister in this game as well. And then of course you can see the positions of the other team, of the other players, should I say. And then you can see Chelsea. And again, this is where I say, if you look at Conor Bradley's position, he's number 84, right? You can see Conor Bradley's position in that right, almost right wing position, you know, so to speak, right wing back, if you want to call it that. And then you look at Chelsea's left-hand side, they've got nothing there. And this is why I mentioned about the threat. But of course, we'll get into that. But Chelsea really offered nothing, if I'm being honest. You know, they were leaving kind of gaps in behind, and you really can't do that, because when you've got someone like a Darwin Núñez on the shoulder here, it's going to be a long day. It's going to be a very, very long day, if I'm being, you know, totally honest with you. If I get up here, the stats from the game in itself, let's just find it up here. Cool. Yeah, got that up. Boom. So, yep, you guys can, of course, see that on the screen. So this is obviously from the game in itself. Liverpool just edging the possession stats. It's crazy because Chelsea in the second half, I think it was, yeah, in the second half, Chelsea did have the more of the possession. Again, it's, you know, I mentioned this on the terrace. You know, you're going to try and come and you can't come to Liverpool. It doesn't matter how crap they are. Of course, last season it has to be is of course the anomaly, but you can't come up against Liverpool usually at Anfield and think you can just kind of come there and play your kind of game. You do need to kind of change it, because if you don't change it, you're going to get found out in some way, shape, or form, if I'm being totally honest with you. So you do need to be very, very careful as to how you do this and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to implement. There needs to be a real clear structure and a real clear game plan from you in order for you to be able to do this. But again, that's just Chelsea. In that first half for Liverpool, again, we had the lion's share possession. Our expected goals, we were 2-0 up at this point, by the way, with a missed penalty. Expected goals 1.86. We had 15 shots at goal with only 6 on target, and we missed one big chance. We had 2 big chances. Again, ratio. I mean, most of the shots are coming from Darwin Núñez, who we'll talk about very, very soon. But yeah, I mean, 15 shots, in that first half is kind of crazy to then follow that up with 13. Chelsea only having 3 in the second half and 1 in that first half, So yeah, it was a real dominating display, if I'm being totally, totally honest, from Liverpool. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. And the only reason why, usually I don't really talk about these kind of things. I try to stay away from controversial decisions. I leave that for the conspiracy theorists out there. I let those guys kind of fight that battle, to be honest with you. But obviously, Chelsea had 2 penalty shouts in the game. Both of them got waved away. Me personally, both of those were penalties. I think anybody saying otherwise, I think that's where your bias comes into it. And I get it, of course. But we all know if that was Liverpool, we'd all be sitting here crying our eyes out. Oh, my goodness, the Premier League is against us. All of this rubbish that we keep talking about every single week when we don't get a decision that we believe to be our decision. That's all the kind of stuff that we say. But for me, when I'm looking at that, if we take a look here first. And that was the second penalty. I'm probably going to get done with the copyright for that. But that was the second penalty shout from Nkunku, Van Dijk on Nkunku. The challenge there, that's a penalty. I don't know, and I don't really understand as to why that wasn't really given. But ultimately, it wasn't given. This is obviously the first one. Again, that's the kind of Van Dijk again. Very, very lucky. Take a look at that. Right knee, bang. Doesn't mean to. It's an accident. We all know you don't mean to do these kind of things. But for me, both of those situations with Van Dijk should have been a penalty for Chelsea. I'm not going to sit here and act like that would have changed the flow of the game. Well, that's a lie, because we actually don't know what the flow of the game would have been like had Chelsea had scored, because that was the first one was at 0-0. So Chelsea go 1-0 up. It's a different kind of game. Maybe they have a different game plan, so to speak, from there on in. But I'm not gonna. We were so dominant in the game. I don't know how much it would have changed. Of course, nothing is a guarantee, so we don't know whether that would have been the catalyst for Chelsea to be able to do this or to do that. I have no idea. But for me, I'm not going to sit here and lie, because you got to keep the same energy as the Tottenham game. Yes, Liverpool had the disallowed goal, but ultimately that doesn't mean we would have won the game. Do you know what I mean? So it's just one of those kind of things. But do I think they were both penalties? 100%. I think definitely Chelsea deserve penalties. And let's see what the PGMOL say, come tomorrow, and or come today, obviously, when this video is out. Let's see what they say. If they apologize, maybe they might have a reason as to why they didn't give it. Maybe they didn't feel there was enough contact. I have no idea. But for me, Stonewall penalties is soft, but they're still penalties. So just because it's a soft penalty, it can't be not given. It's just one of those ones, man. So yeah, the refereeing, again, kind of rubbish, but it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Let's get on to my player ratings. Let's get through this. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. Hopefully you guys can see that. Yeah. Okay, so we've got Ali in goal. I mean, of course, obviously conceded a goal, but that wasn't necessarily his fault. Only had about 2 saves, I think, to make in the game. Nothing really to kind of do. You guys always know, I always find it difficult marking the Alis and the Van Dijks at time, because you're almost like, well, you ain't really do anything. So can I give you that high of a score? I'll give him a 7. To be honest, didn't do anything bad. It wasn't poor or anything like that. Just he didn't do anything. So I'm finding that very difficult to kind of give him a high score. Gomez, of course, Robbo was back in the squad. But Klopp decided to go with Joe Gomez instead. Again, steady performance by Joe Gomez. Down that side on Chelsea's right hand side, but obviously our left hand side, I felt like he was calm. He dealt with most things that came down that side. Attacking wise, I don't really feel like he was really there. Defensively, I thought he was really, really good. But attacking wise, I didn't really feel like he was as good as I've seen him. But again, I felt like it was such a steady performance, from him. So yeah, I'll give him a 7.5. I give him a 7.5. Virgil van Dijk. I mean, those two situations. I'll be honest, yeah, man. Not obviously they didn't go against him, so it's difficult to mark him down for that. But I didn't feel that he was his usual self. If I'm being totally honest. Don't know what the stats are. Don't really care. They're probably going to say he won 100% of duels or something and had 100 long passes and things like that. But for me, watching the game in itself, I don't really feel like he was as good as even a Joe Gomez, to be honest with you. So I'll give him a 7. Konate, I felt Konate was pretty decent in the game, did what he kind of need to do. Again, steady performance. Liverpool didn't need to be their imperious best, in my personal opinion. I don't felt like the game really required that. But I felt like Konate was calm in the game. It's so funny because I wish I had already implemented like a 7.25 because that's the kind of scoreline I would give for Konate and potentially even Virgil. Obviously Konate getting that yellow card as well. Very, very silly from him. I would probably go with I'll go 7.5. I'll go 7.5. Bradley. Connor Bloody Bradley. Now I know Liverpool fans around, they're gonna be, lauding this guy. Amazing. Who needs Trent is what I'm seeing. Connor Alexander-Arnold, it's been crazy. He must be having he must be having the best like last month or whatever it is that he's been in the team. And that he's been playing, getting himself assists, helping out and all that kind of stuff. He must be having the best time right now. You get what I'm trying to say? Like, as in he is getting shown some serious love, from Jurgen Klopp. And yeah, he was good. He was really, 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 really good. Got himself a goal, very, very good finish into the bottom corner. I think got himself 2 assists in the game. 2 assists in the game, created 4 chances in the game. Accuracy of crosses, 2 out of 3. Long balls, 3 out of 5. 2 out of 3 tackles, 1. 7 out of 11 ground duels, 1. I felt like he was really, really good, in the game, to be honest with you. The only thing I probably would have said in regards to him was just, as I mentioned before, and again, this isn't a fault of him. This is more a fault of Chelsea, if I'm being totally honest, is that they didn't really offer anything down that side. So we never really saw him in my opinion, in too many situations where you're like, okay, let's see how you do now, kind of thing. Everything was kind of smooth sailing, in my opinion, for him getting up and down that, that right hand side. He's a different type of right back, in my opinion, of course, than to a Trent, because Trent is a unique type of individual in terms of the ability he has. But he's like he's like the old school fullback who just get up and down that right wing, that right hand side. So no, it was a very, very good performance from Connor Bradley. Give him what would I give him? Give him 8.5. It was a really, really good performance. Obviously, he's clearly my man of the match, to be honest with you. I can't think of anyone else who was even better than that. Moving on to, let's go Curtis Jones. Curtis Jones, steady performance. Steady. He was neat and tidy when he needed to be. At times, again, holding onto the ball just a tad bit too long. But I felt like, again, a steady game, from him. Alexis McAllister, again, another steady performance. I'm really liking McAllister recently. you know, because before I thought like, you know, I've spoken about, you know, McAllister in that kind of DM position. Is that really his natural position? Can he really play there? I think what he's doing now is giving us these steady performances. And that's what I really, really like. He's not been outstanding. He hasn't been amazing or anything of the such, but he's just been really, really steady. And he's proven me wrong in that kind of regard, in terms of now he's being able to have played there for quite a while, probably a little bit scared that Endo's kind of come in and taken his spot and was far better in that position than he was. You know, maybe he's kind of had to understand that he needs to up the level himself a little bit. So yeah, and I felt like, you know, against Chelsea, another steady performance. Zabozalai getting himself a goal back in the team. Decent performance again. I felt like, again, very steady in, you know, what he did. Yeah, got himself a goal. It was okay defensively. Getting himself forward, you know, I thought it was pretty good. Give him 7.5. Luis Diaz, again, himself getting himself a goal. He was more of a nuisance in this game. Goal and assist, should I say? Sorry, it was more of a nuisance, I felt, in this kind of game. But there's still those kind of frustrating moments that we all know from Luis Diaz, you know, at times, you know, picking the right pass, making the right kind of movement, you know, these little things that he will do in games. And it's crazy because we won 4-1. So, you know, people probably say, oh, how can you criticize? It's not about criticizing. It's just, where else can you possibly improve from? But did get himself a goal and an assist in the game. I give him an 8. I give him an 8. That was a good performance by him. We'll save that one for last. Diogo Jota. Jota's performance. He was weird, man. I should have really have got up the message that I put up, and big up Ish. And it's on my Twitter account actually, where I mentioned about Liverpool. Not Liverpool. I mentioned about Diogo Jota, and this guy will ghost in games, but that can soon change. And that is always the case with Diogo Jota. He will ghost in games, and then it just changes. You know, he has that Salah thing about him. He's just probably a tad bit more clinical, you know, to be honest with you. But he has that Salah, you know, about him, and then he becomes a nuisance. And then he has a period where he's just on form. He's just dominant. He's just doing his thing, and, you know, yada yada yada. So I'll give him an 8. I'll give him an 8. Darwin Núñez. Listen, I already know. Yeah, it's funny because I don't even really know where to start with this guy. I think with Darwin Núñez, when you're talking about someone like Darwin Núñez, he had 11 shots in the game, right? Cool. He had 11 shots in the game. He scored 0 goals. He had a penalty amongst those 11 shots and missed. He only created 1 chance in the game, and obviously got himself an assist in the game. But, you know, by the end, the assist for Luis Diaz's goal. Of course, he had those 11 shots. Most of them, I think, were outside the box. If I take a quick look. No, he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots outside the box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 shots inside the box. So he actually had more shots. So obviously, the penalty. So let's say take out the penalty, he had 5 on 5. In terms of so equal amount. So you know, there was a period of time where we were just shooting for shooting's sake. I'm not even going to do the XG thing. When you're talking about Darwin Núñez, I think the way you have to look at Darwin Núñez now, and I think this is the only way that you won't then get frustrated with someone like him, is to literally say this: as a striker or as an attacker, he's not clinical. He's not a good finisher, in my personal opinion. Or sorry, let me take that back, because he can finish. Let me not say he's not a good finisher. He's not a consistent finisher. I don't think that has anything to do with confidence. I think we've gone past the confidence stage. I think confidence is when you use that excuse last season because the whole team was playing poorly, but we're still seeing the same from him this season in terms of the types of finishes. Now, again, I'm not going to say he had 11 shots, by the way. People were acting like, you know, I heard people talking about Núñez saying, oh, it's unlucky. At a certain point, the unlucky thing becomes a bit null void. I'll be honest with you. I can't really hear it anymore. You know, it's not about being unlucky or lucky, to be honest with you. First of all, you make your own luck. We've seen the best of players. We saw Luis Suarez nutmeg people for fun. You know, when you're good, and when it can happen, kind of thing. You know, is that luck, or is that actually technique and skill? Is that something that he works on? Is that something that he continuously tries to do in games? after a while it stops being a lucky, oh, he just luckily put the ball through my legs. No, that's something that he probably works on, in his own game style, in talking about Luis Suarez. In terms of Nunez and the finishing and stuff like that, as I said, I don't think it's unlucky. I just think it's just more not consistent finishing, poor finishing at times. Penalty was crap. You know, when you hit the bar like that, nah, man. Dude, listen, bro, you're missing shots from outside the box. You're missing shots from inside the box. We give you a penalty, you're still missing. There needs to be a whole thing about that, in a general sense. But that's the negative side of Nunez. But just like with the assist and his overall gameplay, he offers you something. We can't deny it. He's chaotic. He's a nuisance. He will torment defenses. He doesn't give them time to even just relax for a minute. And I think that's why you have to look at him in that kind of way. Don't look at him and think, oh, this is a guy who's going to get me a ton of goals. It's not going to happen. It's really not going to happen. And it's something I mentioned on the terrace. If Nunez, people talk about Nunez's GA and stuff like that, and GA is good now. I think it's 11 assists and 10 goals. That's really good from a different type of player. Now, the reason why it's good from a different type of player is because you're actually talking about a player who gets way more chances than anybody else, has way more shots than anybody else, and gets himself into way more positions than anybody else. If it was coming from someone who doesn't get as many chances and gets himself into those kind of areas like Nunez, it would be far more impressive. Again, perception. It's all about perception. Not to say the numbers are not good. The numbers are good. I want people to hear me clearly, because I know there's some of you who don't like to listen and you take in what you think you hear or what you want to hear to suit your own agendas. The numbers are really, really good. But then you also need to understand this is a guy who has far more chances than anybody else, and gets himself into far more positions than anybody else. That I think the issue that people will, like myself, will always have is that you should be doing a lot better than what you're currently doing, because we know you. I can't even say you can, because I actually don't know if you can do better. I think this might actually just be his best kind of thing, which is still very decent. It's helping Liverpool to the top of the league. It's just more of a case of, if there was someone else in your position, someone who was a lot more clinical and actually just better, we would be talking about this player as being the best player since God knows what. We would be. We 100% would be. Liverpool fans don't want to admit it. Again, the bias comes into it, and that's absolutely fine. But we all know that it's fact and it's true. If it was another player, like we saw it with Suarez, these are the differences. Hence the reason why he'll never be as good as a Luis Suarez. Not to say he has to be, not to say he needs to be, but obviously for his own sake, I don't really care whether he does or doesn't, but for his own sake, he probably wants to try and emulate that kind of level, get to that kind of, position where I'm talked about as generational strikers and he needs to improve upon that. And until he does that, it's going to kind of continue in terms of the dividing opinions and things like that. But I say all of that to say, I give him an 8. I'll give him an 8. God loves a trier. God loves a trier. I was thinking 7.5. 7.5, was he? No, because then Diogo Jota, if I gave him an 8, I'll give him an 8. I'll give him an 8. It's a 7.58, but we'll stick with the 8, for the time being. Subs, I don't really care about the subs, to be honest. Yeah, they were all right. Harvey Elliott was pretty decent when he came on. Bobby Clark, Trent, spraying passes as he usually does. Gakpo, just taking shots for shots' sake. But yeah, but that's my ratings for the game. So you guys can, let me just enlarge that for you guys. Boom. So you guys can see it. Alisson with a 7, Joe Gomez 7.5, Van Dijk 7, Konate 7.5, Bradley 8.5, McAllister 7, Jones 7, Szoboszlai 7.5, Diaz with an 8, Nunez with an 8, Jota with an 8. I think that might be one of the highest scores I've given Nunez, so I'm quite proud of myself actually in that regards. Let me just go to man of the match. I think it's got to be Conor Bradley with the 2 assists and a goal. Like I said, I think he was a level above everybody else in the game. And yeah, as I mentioned, he really did contribute to, what Liverpool were trying to do. The funny thing is I hear people talking about oh, oh, Trent, maybe we can do this with Trent, and maybe we get. Listen, I think form is temporary, class is permanent. And I think this isn't a Nathaniel Klein, Trent Alexander-Arnold situation where Klein's just got himself injured and, we needed someone to play, and then Trent's worked his way into the team. Trent's still here. He's still doing his thing. He's still going to be deemed, one of the best right backs, in world football. Don't know what his position is going to be like, but it's very good to be able to know that in other games where maybe we want to give Trent a bit of a rest, maybe Trent comes off, for whatever reason, we can put Conor Bradley in. And I think that would be good. Again, before the game, I had Trent actually starting. I didn't think Conor Bradley would be ready, but I also thought that Chelsea would provide a lot more of a threat down that left-hand side, and they didn't provide anything down that side. So if I'd known it was going to be that easy, I would have said, yeah, Bradley. Heck, even I could have played, in that right back slot. But that's not to take away from Bradley's performance. It was a good performance, by him. But that's kind of it. Liverpool again, they go marching on. Manchester City won 3-1 against Burnley. So they're hot on Liverpool's tails, 5 points behind. They do have a game in hand. Don't know who it's against. They'll probably get that game in hand and then win it, which would probably put them 2 points behind Liverpool. Liverpool, of course, have got that big game against Arsenal at the weekend away at the Emirates. We've already gone there and won 2-0. So there's nothing to say that we can't go there again and win and potentially even get ourselves a clean sheet and maybe just push Arsenal a bit further away from Liverpool and just kind of little bro them. But again, I know Arsenal, their fans, they're definitely going to be up for it. They don't want a repeat of that FA Cup game as well. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Guys, let me know who your man of the match was. Let me know what you think about the game in a general sense. I'm G. That is the match reaction done and dusted, and we are out.